Welcome to the No Name Brand Podcast. My name is Sashka Hanarappel, actress, singer, dancer, turned brand marketing, sales, and advertising strategist who brands your soul. And each week I bring you an inspiring person or message to help you discover your underdog, turn up your leadership notches, challenge the status quo, because you're fast and furious with a powerful message to share with the world. Thank you for taking time out with me today, and without further ado, let's get our creative and wisdom juices flowing. She's blonde, sensitive, empathic, funny, and an intuitive. She really doesn't like language like killer presentation or dominate the competition, nor does she belong to the pushing and aggressive communication department, which is all linked to the return on investment driving the buy. And this is where our next guest felt something big was missing, that all this PR offered out there was out of balance and PR lacked soul. Our next guest takes PR to a new level of communication for heart-centered businesses by helping you to return to connection. So without further ado, please help me welcome Carrie Eddins on today's show. Welcome, Carrie. How are you, lovely?
Oh, thank you, Sashka. I am very well, thank you. Very well rested.
Very good, very good. So we're not a morning person, are we?
No, I'm trying to, but it's tricky.
I like that. At least you're trying.
I am trying.
Yeah, it's cool. So tell me, Carrie, what is PR by definition? And why is it so important for entrepreneurs?
PR by definition is public relations. I see it as like personal relations with the public. So how it can help entrepreneurs, it can act as a leapfrog, basically, to generate leads, to generate opportunities, to be seen as an authority. So it can actually be quite a powerful tool when done really well.
There's this gorgeous perception built around PR that once you pay for it, you're going to be famous. You're going to land on TV, radio, magazines, and more, which is probably a load of bollocks unless you have a lot of things in place. Do you agree or disagree, Carrie?
Yeah, I totally agree. It can absolutely make you famous and attract, incredible leads and opportunities and, book deals and all sorts of things, television programs. But it needs to have, it's a bit like anything in business, because PR really is a form of content marketing. So if you don't have the other aspects in place, I don't feel that you can maximize the opportunity. Because there's a lady I know, for example, she was on TV, but her website link for her book didn't work. And so it's all these little things in place that make it an optimal experience.
And what kind of things should be in place? Like what's important, or not important, but what helps PR and your business actually get you famous, get your brand out there?
Do you mean how can PR help you?
Well, what elements should be in place? Like you were mentioning now, the website. So what other things should be in place?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I see what you mean. Blonde moment. It's early. I would say, yeah, your website needs to be in place. You need to have really decent pictures. You need to have your story clear on your website, because people want to know more about you, how you got to be in business, why you are doing what you're doing, and ideally what you're offering. So people want to know, what product or service they can buy. If you're not at the product or services point, because you don't necessarily have to have a book, for example. It could be like a forthcoming book. You could say author of forthcoming book. But you need to have, therefore, if you don't have a product, then you need to have a blog with opinions, saying what you're about, what you stand for. Because if they can't get a sense of you, then it will only be quite limited, your coverage, I feel.
What do you think, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, how good are you at challenging the status quo?
7 or 8, but could be more sometimes, because I don't really see it sometimes. So some people tell me, oh, that was very challenging. So I'd say quite high. I'm not sort of a vanilla person. I'm more of a Marmite person, really.
Were you always like that, or did you grow into that, challenging the status quo, asking questions, just kind of reading between the lines so you're able to get the right answers and asking the right questions?
I would say I've always been like that, but I suppose I would say that my Britishness, I've allowed to sort of cover that up slightly, because I know that when I am challenging, some people can't deal with it. So it's kind of, I now still challenge, but I'm a lot more diplomatic about it or sensitive about it. But I still challenge. I mean, it's sometimes you don't want to challenge for the sake of challenging. I feel it's important to be more strategic, because you don't always want to burn bridges. Sometimes you do. Sometimes it's about kind of, I've particularly noticed this with men, is like in business, you know, when I say an opinion, instead of kind of going into this right or wrong paradigm, I might say things like, well, you might be right, and also there's this opinion, and that kind of tends to work a bit better. Or I might say, well, my truth is this, or, you know, but not always. Sometimes I might say, well, this is what I feel needs to be done. And they might disagree, they might agree, but it's still coming from quite a challenging place, because the thing is, to innovate and to create and to do what I do, it is coming from a different place. So how I deliver it is a different matter. So sometimes I might deliver it a bit more diplomatically, but it is coming from a different place, however I dress it up.
You were speaking about mentioning something now, and it reminded me of a book that I was reading about shadow and light. And we all need to go through our shadow parts to appreciate our light parts.
Absolutely, yeah.
What hurdles or shadows have you been through in the last 7-10 years that have molded you to believe what you believe today, and use it in not only in your business, but in helping and assisting your clients, your soul clients?
Well, Saskia, quite a lot, really.
It's lovely. Is there a story there? Share with us.
I suppose quite a few, really, because I've gone from like going to lots of business meetings in person, and particularly I've noticed with men, and I've sort of said things and they kind of like, I kind of get a bit attacked. Well, no, very attacked. I've been attacked because I've said things from a different perspective. And so I've gone through and things like, I did a book launch without the book, and I realised that wasn't what I needed to do. I've done things like which was quite a painful experience. I've done things like when I did PR for myself. This was for this book about chocolate addiction. It happened so fast and so easily that I remember going to these business meetings, and a lot of people got really jealous and really funny with me, and it kind of, I thought that it would inspire them or encourage them, and it had the complete opposite effect. And these people sort of came after me, which was a fascinating process, because then afterwards it kind of made me question myself, and it made me jump to the sidelines a bit and kind of, I suppose, hide. So then I kind of, so then I had to sort of go into myself and look at what was really going on. And what was really going on was that I was responding to other people's reaction of me instead of going, this is who I am, like it or not. And so it did cause me to shrink and question things, and really self-sabotage that opportunity, and quite a few others that came my way, because I just felt that if I really stood in my brilliance, then these people would attack me. Well, they could still attack me whatever I do, really. So it's kind of like, it was, for example, I went to Australia and talked about this book that I'd been writing in my bedroom on my own for 4 years. And these Australians were so straight talking, and they were so into it that it was almost overwhelming, because I hadn't really spoken to people in that much depth about it. And they were like, yeah, we'll sponsor you, and we want you to come here and stay here and talk to us and be with us. And I was like, oh, it was just a little idea. I didn't expect to create a movement out of it. And that was, so it was kind of, so my shadow revealed that I was more set up for being a failure than being a success. So I was able to sort of not receive the successful part of the journey, but able to receive the failure, because I was kind of used to that. So it was really like a powerful process. So it's kind of owning that part of me, but then owning the desire to be successful, to be seen, to be valued and heard, which is where actually the body of work came for about my return on connection idea, because I just feel, and I suppose I've always felt, but it helped me articulate it, that all anybody wants in any kind of communication is to be seen, valued and heard, whether it's in business or not. And even since I was a child, people, random strangers always used to come up to me and tell me their problems. It was something that I thought everybody did. And it wasn't until I went to university that, a lot of my peers were like, oh, you're a bit mad, aren't you? You're talking to the security guard, or you're talking to the cleaner. And I'm like, yeah, they're human beings and they're really lovely. and that's it really. And a lot of the people they couldn't really get their head around it, they couldn't understand it. But that's who I am. I'm not, because people are people, aren't they? No matter what job title, they're still needing connection and to be listened to and to be heard and to be seen and valued. And I think the more I've been involved in the business world, because I started off just doing coaching, and then I got a bit bored and I did a bit of marketing, then I got a bit bored, and then I just kind of did lots of different things for different people. But it's kind of, I just felt that it is changing now, but like 10 or 15 years ago, it was still very much about like talking at people and not conversing with them, and it was very much about what can I get from the masculine form of marketing and business. There still is that element, and I think social media, I think for me, exaggerates that element. So there's still a lot of people broadcasting and shouting and talking and, having beautiful pictures, but they're not necessarily doing any kind of deep social listening or empathizing. I still feel that is missing, because I'm an empath and I'm very intuitive, and I just see it, and I feel it. It's kind of, people don't necessarily want to be given the answers. First of all, they want to know that you understand them, so they want you to share a problem instead of like leading, saying, I'm the expert of blah, blah, blah. They want to know what's behind it, really, which is the heart-to-heart, isn't it? It's the heart-to-heart connection. And really, it's kind of, that's where all the buying happens, doesn't it? It doesn't happen from any place of logic. It happens from our heart, from your emotions. So
how do you bring that forward in PR? Because I know for myself, I know that PR has evolved over the years, and I recall when I first had to work with the PR department in my corporate years, I found the department so boring and lethargic, and I also found that PR without a brand or without leadership, it wasn't very beneficial to a company. It was only really those that knew how to network and kind of who knows who that got the brand on TV or radio, newspapers or magazines. Do you feel that PR has evolved over the years, and what evolution or actually revolution have you seen over the years with PR? Where do you feel PR is heading?
Well, it has evolved, because now you can find out who the people you want to contact. They're on social media. First of all, they're probably going to be on Twitter, because that's where all the media people are definitely hanging out, or their team. Whereas before, it was very much a case of like, it's not just what you know, it's who you know, and it was a bit of a closed community. It's a bit like, you can draw parallels from it, similar to like celebrities, can't you? Because now celebrities can be contacted on, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Whether they respond or not is a totally different matter, but they will often respond on Twitter or Instagram. Whereas before, people were handwriting letters, weren't they, to their agents and things.
Yeah.
Which ironically now, if people write handwritten letters to their agents, they might get more of a response, but that's another story.
That's also true, yeah, because it's a rarity.
It's so rare.
Yeah.
It's so rare. So it's evolved because people are more accessible. So it means, it actually means that any company can do their own PR, and it's a lot less snooty. But at the same time, the PR professionals, the journalists are so bombarded, or the editors or the podcast leaders like yourself, they're so bombarded with people with having requests. Their bandwidth is so limited. So sometimes they don't actually have time to acknowledge, saying like, oh, it's not quite right for me. Sorry, I'll be in touch, because they're on to the next thing. They're like on this, like, kind of, they're on a rat race, they're really like, their time is short. Whereas before, they had much more time to take some time to go meet you for coffee, or now they don't have as much time. Some of them don't even have that time to do that. So they're just, so it is still who you know, but they're much more, you're much more able to contact them, because their contact details are like I say, LinkedIn, Twitter, they're all over the place. But this is where I feel like the whole idea of return on connection comes in. So when I pitch them, for example, pitch them blind, as we say, is that like the way I follow it up, I believe it's kind of, it's not from it's from how can I help you? It's not from like, I want to use you kind of thing. You got it, because I feel that's how you get attention. You're coming from a different energy. You're kind of like, how can I help you? What would be best for you? And I'm kind of coming from like a place of cooperation, not a place of like taking, which I feels like the return on investment. Because some clients come to me and like will ask me like, when will I see the ROI? And I kind of say to them, well, there's no guarantee of ROI in any kind of campaign, because, and it's like, you can't always see it, but like, it's a bit like influence, isn't it? You can't always measure influence. You can't always measure trust. Well, if that's what you're looking at, because of metrics, they have become overly obsessed with data and ROI. I understand it, but the point is that when you get the return on connection right, for me, that's about trust. That's about people really believing and understanding your value. Then that's what you need. You need that connection. Once you've got that connection, people will refer you to all their friends and contact you, and that you will become influential. And that's far more important than like how many books you sold or how much you've made or whether you've appeared in this. And that's how I see PR really. It's kind of like, just because you can't measure it so easily doesn't mean to say that it doesn't have an immeasurable, amazing impact.
You just never know who you are impacting through what you're putting out. You don't. And just because that's the case doesn't mean to say it's any less valuable. It's a bit like, a lot of PR is about sharing stories. Well, you just, again, because you can't prove that somebody's liked or read or, retweeted your story, doesn't mean to say, like you say, it hasn't influenced them, because people are a bit obsessed with like, oh, I didn't get many likes or many retweets. And it's like, well, okay, that's your ego talking. And then as lovely as that is, it doesn't, just because you haven't, doesn't mean to say somebody hasn't read it and you've changed their life or inspired them or moved them or realised that you could help them. You don't know, do you? You just can't tell. You don't. And you were talking about it just earlier, when you're in uni or whatever, where you're speaking to the janitor or the gardener or something to that effect, and people kind of like ridiculing it. And just recently I read something on because I was doing a bit of research on your Facebook wall, and I'd like you to maybe share it from your point of view, or not point of view, just how it happened, where you met someone and they were reading how they went from really down in the dumps in, I think it was Marks and Spencer or something, and how they had a bit of a turnaround, and how just by taking time out to connect with somebody and communicate with someone, that it doesn't just help them to empower them to do something better, but it's also for you where you're like, oh God, sometimes I just take things for granted.
Oh yeah, I remember. Right, there's a local stationery shop that I go to, like a newsagent stationery shop, and for at least 6 to 8 months, possibly longer, there was this young lad in there who was visibly depressed. I mean, more than visibly, he actually looked suicidal. And it was kind of like, I used to go in and say, oh, well, if you try and cheer him up and spend a bit of time listening to him, because I'm really conscious that particularly young men, actually I think men of all ages, there's a lot of suicides, but particularly young men, there's loads of teen and early 20s, certainly in the UK, lads who are committing suicide. And it really, really breaks my heart. And anybody, I'm not saying there aren't girls either, but there's this huge rise in boys, and there's much more boys than girls. And so I always used to go in and get a paper and always say hello to him, and there's people I know locally who've been offering all sorts of like taster sessions and things, and I've been like saying, oh, this is this lady's number, try it, and paying an interest in him, asking him if he's gone for counselling, and he was saying things like he was on a list and he's probably going to get antidepressants. I mean, this has been going on for months, like I said, and I went in on Monday and hadn't seen him for ages, so I was quite worried about him. And I said, oh yeah, I said, crikey, what's happened? You look loved up. What's going on? And he looked he looked like a different lad. I mean, it was like he'd gone in as like a depressed, suicidal Clark Kent, basically, and he'd come out a few months later, and he looked like Superman. He looked like he felt like Superman. And I sort of said, what's going on? I said, come on, tell me more. I'm like fascinated. I said, you look like beyond recognition. And he said, I discovered Eckhart Tolle. And I was like, really? And I said, oh my God. I said, I feel like kissing the man, how amazing. And he said, yeah, it's totally changed my life. It's helped me look beyond myself and my ego, and helped me, let go of past pain and live in the moment. And I was just like, wow. Oh, and even now I'm still really like inspired by him. And we had this other little chat, and I said, wow, I said, so what about all those feelings? Because, for me, I'm coming from a holistic background, thoughts are powerful, but you still, I believe, and the Heart Math Institute says that like feelings are 10,000 times more powerful than your thoughts. Yet so many people are just in business and in life focusing on mindset. And I sort of said, so what about your feelings? And he said, oh, well, I haven't quite dealt with them yet. And I said, if you ever need a chat about your feelings, I'm happy to talk to you about them. I said, but way to go, you're really good with your thoughts. And we were having a bit of a giggle, and I sort of said to him, it's any consolation, I'm brilliant with feelings, but I need a bit of help with thoughts, so maybe we can help each other out, because we're all a work in progress. And we had a bit of a giggle, but to see, but like, that was just me making a little bit of effort connecting with someone. And honestly, to see, even now, I'm still a bit like gobsmacked. It was so amazing to see that transformation.
Yeah, well, it's a person seeing a person, literally seeing the person, and you're not just, obviously it's mindset and stuff like that, but you're sitting there every single day and people are walking past and you're already feeling, oh, everyone's feeling sorry for me. And you saw past that, and he started seeing that I'm actually being seen as a human being and not just as a victim.
Yeah.
And that's so true, that the feelings, and we share too little of it, because and I'm pretty much guilty of it as well. Especially, I was reading, or after I read the book by Brené Brown, Rising Strong and Being Vulnerable. And that was really something. It was an eye-opener for me. I'd forgotten the art of being vulnerable, because I'd spent so long being so strong for everybody, and a pillar and a mentor and a mediator and an inspirer and a motivator, that it wasn't anything false that I was putting forward. It was a lot of energy and empowering people and motivating. But at the same time, I forgot, if you have a moment where you cry or you break down or you're not doing well, that's okay. And that can also be communicated, because it helps other people. I'm not the type of person to go onto social media and spill my guts about every emotion that I have. But there are moments where I think, or where I'm inspired by my own intuition, where it's like, okay, you need to share this. You need to go out and share this and know which words to put out as well. And kind of just, no, because a lot of people put it out there, their feelings, but then you kind of like, so what am I supposed to do with that? I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So having kind of like a follow-up after that, and getting people engaged and having a conversation, connecting, communication and connecting. Now I'd like to ask you something, okay? So what do you think you are not very good at?
Oh, loads of stuff. I'm not very logical. I'm not really that practical. I'm not rational. I'm shocking at systemizing. So like my system, I've got 3 like A3 pieces of card on my wall, and I put gold stickers on them. Because I find it hard to put it in a, people say, why don't you do an online diary? And I find it hard to even set it up. And I'm not that technical. So that's quite a few things, isn't it? And if somebody has a conversation with me and they tell me a lot of things, because I'm really dyslexic, I'm kind of like, can you tell me it again? So it's kind of like, which is probably why I set up my company called the Blondepreneur Limited, because I was owning my blondness, I was owning my shadow side. So people say, don't say blondness, Carrie, but I said, well, it's for me actually, it's for nobody else. Because if I own my short-term memory, or my lack of logic, or my trickiness with like things like that, then I'm making myself laugh, because when I was growing up as a teenager, or even at university and in my 20s, I used to get really anxious and upset and beat myself up because I couldn't remember things, or I couldn't do this logical stuff that people were saying, because I found it very, very difficult. I can do it, but it's like, it takes me like 3, 4, 5, 6 times longer than it does to do, the right brain stuff that I'm good at, the intuitive, creative stuff.
How did you manage uni then? How did you go through uni?
I don't know. I've got no idea. I had a lot of really good friends, because this one lady, because for a dissertation, we had to write 20,000 words.
Oh my God.
I had this lovely lady called Wynette, who was Swedish, and she took me under her wing and she helped me write it, basically, because academic writing, even now, it sends shudders through my spine, because it's so hard for me to do. She helped me write it, and yeah, I did a lot of mind maps, and quite honestly, I failed like 80% of my exams. I had to retake them because I just couldn't do the reading very well. We had, in time, because academic reading, it's just reading on another level, so it's very left brain. So again, I found that because I'm a slow reader, it was just almost impossible. And I did get extra time because whilst I was at uni, they discovered I was dyslexic and they gave me extra time and support, which was wonderful. But still the problem remained. Like, we had 3 papers to read by the morning. I could only do one, you know, because I couldn't scan it because I can't understand things very well when I scan things. When people say, oh, you could speed read, it's really hard as a dyslexic, I've found. I mean, we're all different, to speed read because I don't pick it up. I need the picture, I need the whole picture. So to read the whole picture, I can't just hone in on the details because I've got to see where it all fits in the jigsaw.
That's amazing. And you're still tenacious and
Yeah.
ambitious. And it's like, screw that. I'm still going forward, people.
Yeah. I am pretty tenacious. I'm not. It's very rare that I give up on things. Yeah.
I love that.
It's very rare because some people are like, haven't you stopped doing that? And I'm like, why would I stop? I still believe I'm going to get it. You know, it's like, but yeah, I do persist. That's a big thing. I don't give up very easily.
It's like watching Britain's Got Talent or something, sort of, you know, where Carrie's PR, although she's dyslexic and takes quite, you know, it takes a little bit of time for reading and scanning things, like when Britain's Got Talent where you're a singer and you're deaf, for example. I think that's fascinating. Absolutely. It's a talent. It's a talent, Carrie.
I suppose
nothing to do with blonde. It's just it's a talent.
Oh, thank you. I never really looked at it like that. I did see that girl who was deaf and I was like, tears were streaming.
Oh, terrible, terrible. I want to know, Carrie, why do you do what you do? What is your why?
What is my why? My why is really that I'm driven by emotional connection, helping people with emotional connection and communication, because whether it's PR or marketing, because I know what it's like to not feel that. So, I mean, even now, you know, every day sometimes I feel like emotionally not connected to people, and it can tear me up inside. So I know, but I feel that on steroids. So I feel that if I can help people to emotionally connect with their work, because that's the process I take them through with my spiritual PR and marketing. So I get them to emotionally connect with their work, and then if I can help them connect to other people, I feel like that's like fulfilling my purpose, because it's kind of helping. It's a bit like, you know, my purpose is I feel that too many people are living in their heads, and so my purpose is to help people live in their hearts, however painful or uncomfortable, because that's what I do. That's how that's kind of brings me joy. But I know it brings, you know, other people joy, because that's all they need. They only need to be seen and valued and heard. And I enjoy connecting. I always have done, like connecting different people. I've always been able to kind of see like a bigger picture and go, well, that person will be perfect for that person. So it's a bit like a business matchmaking kind of thing. And it's kind of like, but I love that. I find that really exciting, and bringing people together. But it really is about helping people have a heart to heart, because I know what it's like to have a heart to heart. And I know what it's like to feel to have a heart to heart. So if I have a heart to heart with myself and I have a heart to heart with people, it changes my life, and I know it changes other people's life. And so even though it's been my biggest pain, it's become my biggest strength. So it's kind of, because I feel that's all people ever need, really, is a heart to heart, actually. And so heart to heart in business, I feel, is more needed than ever before. So however I do it, that's what's needed. It's kind of, and I love doing it. I find it endlessly joyful and fascinating.
I could talk about, I've got so many ideas and questions that I want to ask you, but we're coming to the end, unfortunately. So we'll have to catch up on this again at a later stage and do another interview.
Oh, bless you. How lovely. I love talking to you, Sashka. You know that.
Oh, cheers, man. So all my guests, I ask at the end of the show 2 questions. And one of them is, how do you want to change the world or challenge the world doing what you do?
I would say to help them to emotionally connect instead of mentally connect. So it's like, yeah, emotionally connect to what they do, how they do it, instead of mentally connect, actually. I'm not saying mentally connect isn't important, but it's had too much importance. It needs to be balanced with emotionally connecting. So That's what I do, and that's my mission, really, helping them emotionally connect.
Love that. And I'd like you to fill in the blanks on 3 of my core values and hear your take on it. So creativity for you is
life.
Wisdom for you is
experience.
Passion for you is
I don't know, how would I say? Necessary. It's just necessary, isn't it? You need to be
cool. I like that. Carrie, thank you so much for being with us here today and sharing your heart and helping us to return to connection. I'm looking forward to having you back again and having some more chats and insight about PR and connecting with your heart and the balance between the heart and the mind and business. You'll find more information about Carrie in the show notes and her social media handles, a freebie, her favorite quote, and a favorite book. And if you need any help from her, just go onto her website, returnonconnection.com. And thank you so much, Carrie, for being with us.
Thank you. It's been a real honour. I really appreciate it. It's been lovely.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Dang, that was just supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. I enjoyed having you on board, and please do me and you a favor. Head on over to iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. Click subscribe, and a super bonus, leave your review and you stand a chance of being announced and advertised on the show. I'm always striving to ensure that your brand is uplifted and empowered. Remember, done is better than perfect. So be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and send in your feedback too. You're the absolute best. Keep rocking.